So Amy, it's so lovely to see you again. We've obviously chatted previously before in our prep session, so it's lovely to see you again.
So great to see you again too.
Great. So today, our conversation is focusing on digital readiness and being prepared for the disruption of digital transformation. And there's a lot of chat, obviously, about COVID-19 pandemic and how that's expedited so many organizations through their digital transformation. So, Amy, in your role as SVP of Head of Digital Marketing Strategy at TD Bank, I'm really looking forward to talking to you about your experience around digital transformation. It would be great if we could just get started with a little bit about yourself and your career to date.
Sure. So I am the head of digital marketing strategy at TD Bank, and what that means is I own the inbound channels like on-site SEO, in-app, the outbound channels like performance marketing, paid media, and I oversee a lot of the advertising technology too. And so it's a pretty broad role and a really exciting remit. And a lot of people have asked me, how do you get a role like this? Like, how did it all start? And so just sharing a little bit about my career progression. Out of college, I like to say that I jump-started my career at American Express, where it's sort of like a college after college. Every 2 years, I was able to look at a different role, dive deeply into marketing, and look at the landscape around me. And what I found was one of the first digital roles that I had was email marketing. And this was back in the day before there was Gmail, and a test and learn could actually be transformational when it comes to engagement, because you were only getting like 20 emails a day. It wasn't hundreds. And that's when I fell in love with digital, because there was a lot of data and you could, more real time see what was happening and pivot on your strategy, and sort of learn from it and grow. And so throughout my career at Amex, I was able to keep that element of digital as I grew there. And towards the end of my career, I oversaw, digital marketing from a paid media perspective, and I wasn't ready to sort of leave. Amex is also very mission-minded. So thinking about customer service and wanting to be the world's best customer experience. So I told myself, anywhere I went next, I'd want to have an element of being mission-minded. And so a recruiter from Columbia University came, and I, went to Columbia as my alma mater for my executive MBA, and it was this brand new role as the head of digital marketing there. They've never had it. And what's great about higher ed is they also have a ton of data, which is very similar to banking, but there's also a lot of privacy issues, right? Like, you can't use all of that data. And they're also very siloed, which is, similar to banks, in which their alumni department and their development department are very separate, and they don't talk to each other. And so the role was really about, how do we connect the customer journey from a digital perspective across both alumni and development, create that holistic strategy while leaning on MarTech, leaning on some of the owned, earned, and paid sort of capabilities and channels. And so it was exciting. And so I decided to move there to make an impact, and stayed there for a couple of years to help build the digital foundation there, and drive some of the digital transformation. And then, I was having my third child. I thought I was going to stay at Columbia for a while, and TD, someone I knew at TD came over and said, hey, there's this great role, and it's really broad. And what's great about TD, and I never thought I would go back into banking after Amex, but what's great about TD is that, it's a challenger brand. And it's not, it's the top bank in Canada, but it's number 8 in the US. And so the mission and the vision is really to be an unexpectedly human brand, and that's the mission. How can we, really build that relationship and not just be transactional when it comes to banking? And that really spoke to me. So I spoke to a lot of leaders at TD, and they really lived that brand promise, and I was really inspired by them. And so, it was about not just being unexpectedly human to your customers, but also to your colleagues. And so I decided, this was a really good opportunity, and it'd be hard to leave Colombia, but I decided to go. And you had talked about, with COVID-19, everything that appended the workplace. When I joined, this was right when COVID hit, and there was job security that everyone was thinking about. And Barrett, our CEO, announced that, for that entire year, 2020, there would be no job layoffs, right? And so that was really embedding the unexpectedly human brand into our culture. And it was one less thing that me or my team had to worry about, because there would be no layoffs that year. And so, that sort of was how I progressed my career and ended up at TD Bank.
And I love the story about moving, because it resonated about the culture of the company and the values. So I can really feel that, because that was a big part of why I moved to Jellyfish. So if I take you back though to obviously the start of your role, it's obviously an interesting start for you during a pandemic. So what were some of the challenges you had to overcome yourself joining a new company during the pandemic?
Yeah, so like I said, right when I joined, I had just come back from maternity leave about a month or so into this new role. And the day I was supposed to step into the office was when everyone moved virtually. So I had literally not met, any one of my team members in person, or pretty much the rest of the organization, except for a few people that I had interviewed in person, right? And so that's a lot to deal with, especially in a new company, when you need to build these relationships and key stakeholders and sponsorships in order to be successful. And no one really talks about this, but if you have kids, they were virtually learning at home. And so I live in New York City with 3 children, 20-month-old, a 4-year-old, and now a 7-month-old, and in this yay big apartment with my husband working in the same room right across from me. And I'm trying to keep it all together during this time, meeting new people, trying to instill culture virtually with my team whom I haven't met. And I think, while it was challenging, it was an opportunity to be authentic, right? So like I could show people my kids, they could get to know me a little bit more. I could see, people's pets at home, and get to know people on a more personal level. And because, we had people dialing in from separate offices, we had, a few offices around the Northeast, and everyone was joining through WebEx now. And so we could be more intentional about our coffee chats and get to know people more. So while it was, challenging from like both a pending of, how we were doing business and sort of the team, it was still a good opportunity after all. And I did get to know people at a more personal level.
That's no mean feat, I have to say. And what about your vision though at TD? Because if you could explain a little bit about that, because I feel that that's to have come up with that as well during your own challenges and bringing a team together during a pandemic and having to all work remotely. How did you come up with that?
Yeah, so our vision is basically to be a seamless digital customer-led experience that drives loyalty and adoption to reinforce our unexpectedly human brand. So if you think about digital adoption, and I like to quote a McKinsey article that I've read, digital adoption has vaulted 5 years forward in the span of 8 weeks. And so what the pandemic did was it sort of threw people into the digital space. And if you think about TD and banks in general, we rely heavily on our retail stores. But during the pandemic, these stores were all closed. And so we needed to double down on our digital experience. And so to me, what I really recognized was that, this is the time that we have to really understand our customers. There's so much going on in, the digital landscape when it comes to privacy and people wanting to own their own data. And at the same time, we also need to be relevant. So how do we marry both relevancy and privacy at the same time to have this, customer-led type of connectivity and journey and experience while being unexpectedly human? And so, the vision was, how can we connect the dots with what we have, and what do we need for the future to add on to it so that we can deliver on this brand promise? It was hard to come up with the vision so quickly when I got here with the resources that we have. But I think being able to focus on that and get some stakeholder and sponsorship around it allows us to just move forward in the direction of being customer led.
And with the stakeholders, obviously, how did you get them on board? Was there nervousness about that, or do you feel that they were really engaged from the beginning? Because sometimes the thought of digital transformation is a big word in itself, and people think, oh, it's going to cost me a lot of money to do this. Like, how did you get them to buy into what you wanted to deliver?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that what helped during the pandemic is that before, digital transformation, agreed, it's a big word, was something in the back of the mind of a lot of executives that says, oh, it's something we need to do, but it's something for the future. Right now we have our stores, we have our, customer service representatives, we have people. And so while digital is important, it's sort of, not sort of as imminent as some of the other problems that we have to face. And what happened was, because we have leapt so forward in digital adoption, there are executives coming to me asking about digital, whereas before I had to, it was very much an education of why is digital important, and what does it mean to your bottom line, and how do we drive sales and adoption and loyalty? And so it was much of a selling and education process. And now, while it's still a selling and education process, what they're trying is they are coming to me, and they're also trying to understand it more, right? So there's different levels when you think of executives and sort of where they come from. And there are some people who don't know the difference between like natural and paid search. So they're asking, when you type in checking, why doesn't TD show up, right? And there are people who don't understand the difference between paid and organic, social media, right? And so, there are nuances, and depending on who your audience is, it's so important to be able to speak their level and their language when it comes to digital education. And from there, you can then have them as an advocate and a sponsor, because once they understand what digital is and why it's important, then it helps with sort of, pushing the vision across the organization.
Definitely, I agree, and definitely the nuances of different understandings across different audiences. It's a skill in itself sometimes. So, in terms of to get your vision to be successful, what were the big elements of change that you needed to get your team and the business ready for?
Yeah, so when it comes to digital readiness, I think Sharon has said before, it's a constant. And we need to be diligent about it. And one of the things that I focus in on the most is data, right? So data can be a lot with what we have, but it's customer data, and what does the customer want, right? And so really understanding the measurement, the data, the ability to gain insights, right? So it's not data for data's sake, but also being able to leverage the insights and then turn it into action. And the action is the how, and that will have to leverage on the capabilities that we have within an organization. And different organizations are at different levels. At TD, we have a lot of legacy systems, And I think that's true with lots of large organizations. And there's not a lot of connectivity. So our data is sometimes latent. Sometimes we're not as connected as we should be. And there's all these bells and whistles and tools out there when it comes to capabilities. So, do we leverage existing ones? Do we scrap and, build new ones? But at the end of the day, when I think of seamless as part of our vision, the customer just wants us to be able to provide that, right? And they don't care how it's done. So in the back end, we need to figure out what's the best way to deliver on that promise, and how do we leverage our existing capabilities or build new ones so that things can be a little bit more automated, that we can leverage what's out there in the digital ecosystem, and provide that type of experience that customers have come to know and acknowledge.
And so we've talked a little bit about stakeholders. We've talked a little bit about your customers. What about your own team? Like, how have you prepared them for the shift and the pace of what's been going on since you joined the company, essentially?
Yeah, absolutely. And I do, I've talked to a lot of other marketers about talent, right? Because the type of talent that we need now is probably very different than the type of talent we've been looking at before. We are looking for people that need to have the ability to work in white space. Digital is constantly changing, right? So like Apple's coming out with new privacy rules. Google wants to get rid of third-party cookies. It's the ability to pivot and be okay with that and comfortable with that type of change. And so it's instilling on my team that as a digital marketer, you're kind of picking up a lot of different pieces. Some days we are, in the capabilities bucket. Some days we're in the data and analytics and understanding the P&L. And sometimes we're just looking at creative and how relevant it is in the marketplace. But we need to empower our team to understand that it's okay to wear multiple hats, and to be able to sort of chart your own course in what we call digital transformation. And at the same time, we need to attract those people that are thirsty, that want to do this type of work, and that aren't scared of moving in multiple directions sometimes, but being able to focus and find their what makes the most sense from a prioritization perspective. So it's definitely a cultural change. What our team has also started doing, because in the digital team space, I think those people that are attracted to digital are attracted to these types of characteristics, but it's the rest of the organization, the rest of the marketing organization. So we've started these digital lunch and learn sessions on a monthly basis, and it's open to anyone across the organization just to upskill everyone. So thinking about the cookieless world, what does that mean for me? Thinking about some of the MarTech capabilities, how do we think strategically about digital? Because there are elements of digital across any marketing job, and we as people touch digital in multiple ways too, and can experience that. And so it's trying to enable everyone to become more passionate about this space, so that when we are asking for partnership or trying to leverage resources, they're on board and supported.
Amazing. And something that we kind of touched on before, and I thought it'd be interesting to share with the audience. You mentioned in a previous role, you had laid the foundations of digital transformation, and you felt ready then to be able to almost leave your baby of this side and move to another one. In terms of those foundations, what do you feel they were? And could you share them with the audience so that they can understand what that was?
Absolutely. So I think, I mentioned elements of this in some of the other answers that I've given, but the first one is really gaining sponsorship, right? So when I first started at, let's say, Columbia, people knew that digital was important, but they didn't recognize how important or why it was important. And so it's really identifying your organization, who are the key decision makers, and get them to be digital advocates for you, and have them sponsor so that when you're talking, you have an extra advocate in the room to say, hey, digital is important and I'm willing to put out resources, so are you. And so like gaining that type of sponsorship so that even if I'm not there, that sponsor can speak on behalf of your team. And the second one, I think really is around, being able to get your data together and being able to visualize it and act upon it. So, even just something as simple as if you look at transactions, right, that come through, if the majority of them come through a mobile device, then you should be designing for mobile first, right? So being able to showcase, hey, 51% of customers are coming through a mobile device, like that type of data, and being able to visualize that data for the rest of your cohorts is important. And so just being able to lay the foundation for measurement and data and have clear goals that you're setting from a digital perspective will really help with laying the foundation. And then the third one is really thinking about your digital capabilities. So what capabilities do you have right now that you are leveraging and are happy with? And what do you need to add on to it or change in order to get better at what you're doing? And so, like at Columbia, we were using Salesforce, which, a lot of people are, Marketing Cloud from a marketing automation perspective, and it's connecting all those channels together. And so by the time I left, we had sponsorship, we had elements of, some of the data visualization and that data-driven mindset to make decisions based off of that data, and some of the capabilities with a roadmap of where we wanted to go and how we wanted to leverage our existing capabilities. And so with those things, I felt like even though it was sad to leave, I felt like the team could sort of run with that, and therefore I was able to go to a different organization.
Amazing advice. I'm just going to check QAs are coming up soon. So in terms of how our customer experience has just fundamentally changed, where do you feel we should be focusing now over the next sort of 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, so, what's interesting is I always tell people when I think of a customer experience, I like to give Pottery Barn Kids as an example because I'm a mom. And, mom of three, what happens is I go to, Pottery Barn, I go to their site and I click on an anywhere chair because my first two children have it. So of course, my third child, like, I guess I need to buy it for her or else she's going to feel shafted. And so I click on it and, I'm not ready to buy it. So they follow me with ads of that exact chair and that exact color all around wherever I go. So Facebook, or if I'm reading New York Times, anything, I will see that chair. And I still haven't bought it yet, right? And so I get an email, okay, that says, hey, 20% off this chair. Are you still, going to buy it? And of course, I feel like as a bad, guilty mom that I need to buy this chair now because not only is it 20% off, it has followed me throughout, wherever I go. And so some people could say, that's creepy, but other people can say, hey, actually, that's good marketing because it reminds you of something that you had originally wanted. It's relevant and it's timely, and it's using a lot of different channels, right? And so when I think of, what we need to be ready from a customer experience perspective, it's that marketing automation. It's that omni-channel. I know omni is like a buzzword and overused, but it is, right? Like, how do we connect all of our channels together so that it's a journey, not a distinct, disparate experience for the customer? Because, there's a level of expectation. If you know who I am, you should know that I wanted that anywhere chair in that exact color, as opposed to, a bookshelf or something else that you could be marketing with. And so, while straddling the line between privacy and creepy, it's making sure that we can provide an omni-channel relevant experience for that customer. And I think, the how is sort of what you need to focus on, but that's sort of the North Star when it comes to what we need to do in the next 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, and I think it's a really interesting point this year around that privacy side of things and the changes that we'll see this year. So it's more important than ever, I think, to understand about your data, first party data, and hopefully, I imagine you're in a really great place, Amy. So before we go to, hopefully that wasn't a nervous laughter. Before we go to,
I think we can always be more ready.
I like it. Before we wrap up then, just for the audience, in terms of your 3 key takeaways in terms of digital readiness, what would they be?
Yeah, so in terms of digital readiness, I would say, look at your customer experience. You do have first-party data, right? And so your competition is no longer just your industry. Like Walmart talked before, and Walmart, while not a direct competitor, is a competitor when it comes to their attention, my customer's attention. And so it's not just about your industry, your vertical, but if it's not relevant and you're not giving people relevant content, then you might as well have a ton of competition out there. And so it's getting to know your customer, and you have data, so use it, right? So look at the customer in your data. The second, what I would say is to leverage the digital capabilities that you have. I know a lot of people, they have Marketing Cloud or, they have Marketo or something, and there's so many bells and whistles that they're not actually leveraging what they have, and they're looking at the next best thing. And so it's thinking and taking a step back and looking at what you have right now, how you can best leverage it, and then how do you iterate on it, right? But being a little bit more intentional and focused about continuing to join those channels across the customer journey. And then, I can't say this enough, but find your digital advocate, right? So, when you think about sponsorship, and this is across, any type of role that you have, but especially in the digital space, it's complex sometimes. I don't presume to be a digital expert because things are constantly changing and I'm learning all the time. And so it's finding the right people to support you and be that extra voice in the room so that they can advocate on your behalf when you need to just, continue to innovate and iterate in this space. And so those would be the 3 things that I would say people can try to take away.
Amazing. Thanks. Thank you, Amy. So we do have Q&A, which we will try and get through some of these. Okay, right. How has work from home impacted the dynamics culture of your marketing organization and the skills needed? So in-house and with your agency or technology partners?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because I think that, so TD's in this space where we are, starting to look at in-housing, as I'm sure a lot of other organizations are. And, part of being agile and working together is that necessity to be in the same space and to be able to permeate that type of culture. And so, while I do think that some of that has absolutely been lost because that in-person aspect is not there. I think that because we are all on WebEx, it's not some people are in person, some people are on WebEx, we're all virtual, we're all trying to make it work. And so, with the team, we've done team happy hours. We've, tried to have random questions to get to know each other. Like, if you were a superhero, what would you be? And sort of spitball some of that out, just to get into a more personal level, to develop that type of culture. We're constantly chatting on, our teams, Microsoft Teams, and being able to talk to each other. And so, I look forward for when we can be back in office and be able to have these one-offs and, meeting people in the hallway. But at the same time, I do think because we're all on equal footing right now, everyone has to be virtual that everyone's trying to make it work. And even with, trying to in-house and project manage, everyone gets on a call. Everyone's on, well, for us, it's WebEx, for you guys, it's probably Zoom. And there might be fatigue, but at the same time, you can see that person at least. And so we're making it work, and it hasn't necessarily even slowed us down, right? Because we're trying to move at a certain pace. And as long as the team is looking forward to driving and delivering results, and we have that type of culture, we're making it work.
Thank you. Next up, as a marketer, what technologies are you most excited about as we head back into the end of 2021?
I'm excited about pretty much all technology that comes out sort of that's new. One of the things at TD that I'm excited about that we had done, most recently is curbside pickup, and what I do like seeing is the integration of both storefront and digital. And I think with Walmart speaking before, it's sort of like they use their parking lot for a movie night or something, but like it's how do we integrate all of this together using technology? So with curbside pickup, you can look at your mobile app, and you lost your debit card. You can make that appointment and then just go and pick up your debit card right at the store. And so what I'm excited about is seeing how do retailers, how do organizations transform the way that they do marketing through the connectivity of both digital and physical. And I think, those are the types of things that I'd love to see going forward as the pandemic has pushed that integration even closer together.
Yeah, and I think you touched on a really good point around the change from how our stores, or how we call it in the UK, high street, is completely changed, and how do people measure footfall to online. So I think that's a really interesting challenge we'll all be looking at. So a couple more questions hopefully to fit in. We've got a question from Good Loop. Purpose has been a buzzword during the pandemic. Does TD have a long-term strategy to do more good through digital advertising?
We do. And so, when we think about purpose, right, TD cares a lot about, and we were talking about being unexpectedly human. And when we think about digital advertising, sometimes it's taking a stance, sometimes it's communicating what we believe in. And we're always trying to figure out what is the right stance, how can we communicate and be authentic, right? Because I think that some brands go out there and, they're trying to capitalize on BLM, they're trying to capitalize on diversity, and they don't seem authentic. And so I think what TD is trying to make sure is that how do we come across as authentic? TD just, they're spending $17.4 million on combating discrimination, right? And because diversity matters, and with a focus on how can we be more diverse in the executive level. So I think, with taking a stance and a purpose, it comes internally first, right? Like we need to fix our culture. We need to make sure that we can stand up and be authentic. And then from a digital advertising perspective, we can go out and say, hey, we are trying to be authentic. We are standing for our purpose. How do we stand against, how can we protect people's privacy? How can we make that privacy first? How can we take a stance at being better and communicating out what we believe in? And so I think, it's definitely a road and something that we are trying to strive for, along with a lot of other organizations out there.
Yeah. So we have a question actually from Sharon. So what's on the horizon for the fintech sector as digital channels are growing? Will having more options better for the customer?
Yeah. So, when we talk about more options, fintech is absolutely growing. And when we think of millennials, right, and I think I said this before, like 74% of millennials feel that banking is transactional. And so when we think about the chimes out there are a lot of great fintechs that are coming out with different types of products. I think that competition, while challenging, is also very good for the industry because it propels us to do better, right? And so it propels us to focus on our value proposition. And I can go to my product team and say, hey, Chase, Bank of America or Chime is doing this on in their mobile app, right? Like, how do we do better? And we're going to see a lot, going forward. We're going to see more competition, not less. And I think it's good for the customer, right? Because the customer becomes more savvy about their finances. And as the customer gets upskilled on what they want and what they need, then we must also change as an organization to meet those types of needs. So a lot is on the horizon, and we are trying to be ready so that we can show up as a true competitor in space.
Amazing. So we probably could do a couple more before we are wrapping up. We might have touched on this a little bit, but this would be good. So how has work from home impacted the dynamics and culture of your marketing organization? Oh, we've already done this. I'm really sorry. Are you adjusting your marketing and digital transformation initiatives or investment over the next 2 to 3 years based on the past year?
So we are, right? What we had seen is, when we, during the pandemic, TD isn't sort of one of the biggest spenders out there when it comes to digital marketing, but we were consistent. And a lot of our competitors pulled back in the industry, and it gave us an opportunity to look at how efficient our spend was. And looking at the competition, we are very efficient with what we have, and there's an opportunity to grow. We want to make sure that when people are searching for TD Bank, we're not constantly being contacted, and we're able to spend in such a way that when people want to look for us, they can find us. And so over the next 2 to 3 years, I imagine that we will grow in sort of our spend in the industry, and not exponential growth, but a continual growth. And just like other organizations are looking at in housing, we're also thinking about how we can be more efficient in how we spend media and the partnerships that we choose. And so I'm excited because I think it's going to be a very interesting next couple of years here to really grow and expand in this space.
Amazing. And probably time for one last one, Amy. We'll do this one. What ways is your brand working to stand out in the eye of the consumer?
So I think that what our brand is trying to do is to continue that conversation with our customers, right? And so it's really understand how can we be human in their language. And we just launched a credit card. It's called the Double Up card. And you get 1% back as a normal consumer, and another % back if you are banking with TD Bank. And a 2% credit card, if you understand credit cards in the P&L, this is a very lucrative card. And what we're trying to say is, hey, we care about the relationship at TD. And so as a customer, we want to give you that 1% in addition to the other 1% that we give everyone else. And so, I think going forward, it's how do we continue on our brand promise? And how do we be unexpectedly human? It's our stores are opening up now. And I think that while a lot of people have, adopted digitally to doing transactions in app or online, a lot of them are also starting to go back to in store, but for different reasons, right? So before it might be, oh, hey, I need to take out money. Hey, I need to, put some money back. Now it's to have more of a conversation about our financial health.
Right, so you've seen Sharon's joined us now. Thank you so much, Amy. That was such a great chat with you. I really appreciate your time today. Best of luck in the role. Sounds like you're absolutely smashing it. So good luck for the foreseeable future. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thanks for having me join.
Yes, it was a fantastic conversation. It's funny, all the parallels between, a Walmart and a TD Bank, talking about omni-channel, talking about how important it is to hire people who are comfortable in an ambiguous situation. I think sort of the role of the marketer and the CMO is really shifting quite a lot. You're technologists, you're data gurus, you're all about the human experience. So lots of connective tissue and just some amazing conversation. So thank you, Amy and Guest.